Hello and welcome. Today's episode is perfect for entrepreneurs with a team or who intend to build a team of one or more as we talk systems and processes specifically related to using the right software. You may be wondering, should I use documents or project management software? The answer is no. You must use software specifically designed for documenting standard operating procedures. This decision could be the difference between surviving and thriving between 5, 6, 7 figures and beyond. I cannot convey my passion for this rule of the game, so tune in, learn, and play to win. For more information on this episode or how to work with me, check out the show notes or visit betterinbusiness.global. You've tuned into Better in Business with Jeannie. As an award-winning strategic bookkeeper and business veteran, I am dedicated to helping entrepreneurs learn, grow, and prosper. This podcast aims to challenge your thinking. If you're not thinking the right way, how can you act the right way? Each episode will dive into key drivers of success, which I also call the rules of the game. Learn the rules, play to win. Let's go. I like to start every episode by reminding you that it is globally recognized that pillar 1 for the success of any business is up-to-date, accurate bookkeeping. If your books are not right up to date, tune into episode 1, please. You can also get in touch with me if you'd like some help. Joe Corsione from Trainual is joining us today. I'll keep Joe's intro short and sweet and tell you a little bit about him and also about the organization that he represents. So Joe is the partner manager at Trainual, and he personally has been leveraging his years of experience working in small business to help small businesses to document and delegate what they do. And goodness gracious, is this a rule of the game? I'll say it again, document and delegate what you do. So Trainual, that Joe is representing, is an amazing software organization. Their vibe is definitely my vibe. These are great people, but their software too. It is absolutely the bee's knees in terms of documenting your standard operating procedures in a way that your team can use them to ensure quality and process and efficiency and success in your business. So definitely today, talking with Joe Corsione is going to be about helping you do better in business through standard operating procedures. Welcome to the podcast, Joe, and thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Jeannie. It's a real pleasure.
So you're from Trainual, and you know that it's a piece of software that I love. And because I love it and because of the power of standard operating procedures for small business, I've got some really clear objectives today. So we talked about that. I'm so putting my trainer and assessor hat on. What I actually would love to know, because one of the things I want to do is focus on, when and why you use software and that kind of thing, to make sure I really want to help my business owners, my audience, understand why would I use Trainual over, documents, etc., because there's a place for everything. So I'd actually love to know, when did Trainual have its inception? When did Trainual start?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to give some context for the listener here. So I am the partner manager here at Trainual. So I partner with a lot of people who work with small businesses such as you, who are helping them scale and systemise, which, that is essentially what we do at Trainual. Is we look at small businesses who want to get their processes in one place. They want to scale their teams. They want to hire new employees, and ultimately they want to scale their business. And that's generally what Trainual helps to do. Now, the inception of it kind of starts from like the early days of our founder and CEO, Chris, when he was actually running his own business. So he was running a video production company. And at the time, he was getting a lot of success. He had a lot of clients. He had a lot of things going for him, a lot of projects, a lot of irons in the fire. But, as he was going through that journey, he kind of hit that part that a lot of small businesses hit, where you're kind of growing really, really well and like business is booming. But the problem is, when you're the owner of the business, you are also the operator, right? Because of you and being in that position, and you have so many different things going on, you are the business. And essentially, like if you got hit by a bus or you got hit by a car, or like or even if something happened to you where you couldn't run the business anymore, that business would cease to exist because you're running all over those things. And so that was Chris when he was in his video production company. Like he was doing like everything from A to Z, and he really didn't have time for himself. And he realized that he was the bottleneck in the business. And so in order to do that, he realized through like learning and different readings and books and things like that, that he had to document what he did so that he could delegate those processes onto team members who can come in, do the work that he's doing exactly the way that he was doing it, because that's what led to success, and ultimately scale a team with a business that works beyond him, essentially. So he wanted to go from working in the business to be working on the business. And that's the goal for every entrepreneur. And down the line, you know, he eventually started to consult for small businesses to do that same exact thing through process documentation, through effective delegation, through systemizing the business to ultimately be able to help business owners work on the business as opposed to in it. And then eventually through there too, he worked to develop Trainual, which was a software offering that he had in his consulting business. And eventually he saw more people wanted the software than the consulting operations, and it was a lot more scalable and accessible to others. So he launched the software out of there, you know, about like 4 or 5 years ago. And today we are a full-fledged software company with 100 employees. So that's kind of the background on Trainual.
It's no small feat. I've got a background in software and I would never develop software. So hats off to Chris. I was chatting to a lady for a podcast that will be airing soon. Her name is Karen Carey, and she's becoming a Trainual certified consultant. You know, she's in the States. She's world class in the way she operates in systems. So much so that I think I'm going to get her in with that systems hat on, you know, just to help our whole team. And we have great systems. I have a few different businesses, but the bookkeeping practice runs primarily by itself. As you said, the only way you can do that is if the systems and processes are in place. I remember when I was with our family's business, it was a really, really, really big business. We grew it to 100 million. Yeah, there was a time when, and my father was really the key person in it. Yeah, he had a major health thing happen, you know, and if you don't have everything in place and you haven't empowered the people to do that, then how can the machine keep ticking over, you know? So the next thing I'd love to ask you about, Jo, is sometimes it can feel really overwhelming, like, oh my goodness, get my processes down. What do I use? How do I do it? One of the approaches that we've taken internally is, and if I think of Karen too, she loves to first kind of map out what's happening in a bit of a workflow. And you can do pen and paper, right? Like I think it doesn't have to, I don't like actually using computers for the flow charts because I can't be bothered learning it. So you can sit down with a pen and paper and go, well, I kind of start here. I'll draw a circle around that. And then after that, we do that. For us, we like to put all of that into a document because that can be quite handy to brain dump. But then ultimately, we chose Trainual because it's a really great platform, simple enough, but it's got enough. Mm-hmm. And then unlike some platforms that are really, really complex, the other thing that dazzled us, it's great bells and whistles like the multimedia abilities and all of that kind of thing, but the ability to put an assessment on every process. We just went, as a trainer and assessor, we went wild for that.
That is awesome.
Of systems that don't have that at all. And I say that the assessment is the 20% that makes 80% of the difference. So I'd love you to kind of talk to us about, you know, who is a perfect business owner to consider using Trainual and some of the features that you see that really make all of this easier.
Yeah, 100%. And thank you so much for all your kind words about Trainual, Jeannie. It really just like goes and confirms like some of the things that we're doing. And I love to hear that, you know, you like how like the simplicity of the platform, but also the powerfulness, right? Because small business owners, as you know, like it's so tough to find the time to really like add more things on your plate. And so when we developed Trainual, we were like, hey, we want to make this simple. We want to make this straightforward. We want to make this easy to learn because we want to be able to eventually save the business owner time by developing the platform. And we want to reduce that hurdle to get started. So to go back to your question on like who Trainual is ideal for, well, essentially it's like the entrepreneur that I was talking about before, Chris, right? Like in his video production business, he was doing really, really well, but he felt like he was the business and he was also juggling so many different hats in the business and really just was the bottleneck in the business. Now, for anyone listening here, that could be you as an entrepreneur who's doing really, really well in your business. You got a good book of business, you got revenue coming in, but you feel like you're the bottleneck in the business. Or maybe you're at a point where you're at, 10 to 15 employees and you feel like you're hitting a plateau because all of your workers are wearing multiple hats. They're super slammed, they're working like way past 9 to 5. They're ultimately just can't take anything more on their plate. And you need to hire more people to help you to scale that. Right. And like the word hiring is always there too, but really in the end of the day, what is hiring? Hiring is delegating. You're really taking processes that are working and you're delegating them onto someone else so that either someone on your team or you don't have to do that. And ultimately you get to build a process where it doesn't rely on, one single person, AKA you as the business owner. So if you're a business owner right now and you feel like you or your team might be the bottleneck and you're looking for that next, really lever to help you to not just grow, but sustainably grow, then Trainual is for you, right? Because we might be growing right now, but if we don't have the systems, the documentation, the processes in place, it's really hard to make that sustainable, especially when you need to bring on someone else to do that work because they don't have any reference to basically do the process, right? They're like, what do I do? And they say, I don't know, figure it out. And that doesn't lead to consistent results. It doesn't lead to scalable results, and it doesn't lead to the results that built your business where it's at. So anytime that you're facing that pain point, that is where Trainual is the right way for you. Now, how does Trainual really help to, have that process in there? So the first thing is we want to make it simple and easy to document. Like you said before, it can be a daunting task to be sitting there and be like, oh my gosh, I need to document everything in my business. We make it super simple for anyone to go in, like whether or not they have technology background, to start documenting straight in the app. And we provide a ton of resources such as success coaching, on-demand resources, video learning, and we even provide setup support as well on our higher plans in case anyone wants to delegate that work in the spirit of delegation, so to say. So we offer all that in there as well, which makes it so easy. The second thing is we make the content easy to delegate, right? And that's so important because a lot of times where delegation comes in is people will write it in a Google Doc and then they'll send it over. The problem is, how many times have you been in a Google Drive and you went to look for that one document that you need and you can't find it because it's just a total sea? Yeah, we make it super easy to find, like through a robust search functionality, easy to find folders, and ultimately a notification system that allows you to track whether or not your employees have seen it, read it, and to your point before, being able to understand the comprehension around it by building tests and quizzes. So we get the delegation right, but we also get the assessment part right as well. Because like you said, the assessment part is really the 20% that can make sure that your new hires are knowing what to do, because you can read one thing, but if you don't actually apply it or understand it, then really it's worthless. And so in the end of the day, to build in tests to make sure that they're understanding the processes that they're going through is going to be crucial for that as well. And then the last thing in terms of like just real power that we have in the system, we also have like a really, really good way to have that robust reporting. Like I mentioned before, are people logging into the system? Are people viewing the content? What is their test scores like? Because holding people accountable to actually following the processes is going to be something important in the end of the day. So that's a little bit of a blurb of, who would be, the best fit for Trainual, and a little bit of some powerful features that you can't get with a Google Docs or a Word doc, or even worse, dare I say it, paper manuals.
One of the parts of my charter with this podcast is that I want to challenge business owners' thinking and redirect them to think the right way. Because I think if you're not thinking the right way, then if you think the wrong way, you take the wrong action. So, for example, if you think that Google Docs or Microsoft Word is the best place for my standard operating procedures, then you think that, therefore you are going to take that action, and therefore you're going to have some pain. So if you intend to bring on team, even if it's only a few team, hear me now, please don't use project management software to document your processes. Please don't use documents. They're just not set up for it anymore. Please use a software that is just built for systems, and know that I've done the hard yards and I've tried the project management software and I've tried the documents, because I've done all of it. And years ago, before we had software, Karen Carey and I was saying, 20 or so years ago, we did it in Microsoft Word. Things were static. We didn't really have cloud. It was actually quite easy. These days, businesses and tech move so fast, we just have to use software. And Trainual's, if I was listening to this, I would think, I bet Trainual's really pricey. We can't believe how affordable it was to use this software. Sometimes I hear about things and I think, this is going to be pretty pricey. Joe, a few of the things that are on my mind as top tips, because hopefully my audience is thinking, all right, if I'm going to get team, I believe Jeannie about this. I so want to help people avoid pain and get things right. I really think in terms of my top tips around what to do to make it easier. The first one I would say is give yourself a lap around the sun, which is a year, right? So think of a standard operating procedure project going from zero to having something that really makes a difference in your business. Think of it as a year, because even if you think, oh, hang on, I reckon I could knock that out in a month, it gives you all this less, you're not setting yourself up to fail. Does that make sense? Like if you say, there's some people listening and go, yes, a long time. Oh, come on. Christmas was 5 minutes ago. So definitely give yourself a year. The second, as I said, choose software built for systems, and people will tell you other things. Yeah, please believe me on that one. The next thing in terms of documenting what you do, something I do with my business owners is I say, tell me your secret sauce. If you're like the technician person, how do you get the result you get for the client? So what are the 3 to 10 steps you take in summary? And if they scratch their head, I say, no, your secret sauce already exists. You're doing it. You just did it then, and you're going to do it in a minute. Just off the top of your head with pen and paper, rattle off to me the 3 to 10 steps that you take. And I could, do that when I've got my bookkeeper hat on, or when I've got my strategist hat on. When I've got my strategist hat on, for example, I go, well, I look at the planning aspects, then I look at team, because we need the team in place. And after that, we could do the marketing. And after that, we could do the conversion. And after that, we could do the systemization, right? So everything I do as a strategist surrounds those 5 steps. And if you have that flow, which I'll be honest, sometimes is often linear, or it might be an ecosystem, you can really expand off that into your processes. So that's definitely something. What you said about Trainual resources, get a consultant if you think that you can. So Jo, as you know, she's a Trainual certified consultant on my team. So we are a certified consultant that gets a consultant in, because there is always a value in somebody else's look over and insights. So don't be afraid to leverage a consultant. If you've got a team, appoint a champion on your team to actually take care of this. Don't try and do it yourself. The other big one, I think, is don't document what you are not doing right now, because I've done that before. It was a disaster, because life gets in the way, business gets in the way, and suddenly you've documented a process that you're not doing, which is just confusing. Keep a dream book, whatever. Document only what you're doing right now. Whatever you're doing right now is your perfect version 1. And so many business owners are like, yeah, but I don't think we're doing well enough. You know what? If you're in business and you're making a living, you're doing just fine. Document that. And then if you want to get better, you could create, this is what we do, a little Google sheet. It's called the Better Every Week sheet. And all of the team can access it. And every time something happens that they think, oh, I think there's a kink there, they pop the details in. It's quite structured. And then every week when we meet for our week in retro and week ahead, we look at the Better Every Week, and we aim to be better every week by improving our processes. And we agree who's going to improve the processes, et cetera, et cetera. And then the last thing is to understand why we're doing this. I love that you said consistency, Jo, because McDonald's is always a strange example, but it is that consistency. And that's why I call these things secret sauce recipes. If your team followed your secret sauce recipe to the letter every time, the result would be consistent. You would have less rectification work and complaints. If your team almost followed your recipe, you would have rectification work and complaints. The main reason that we would ever go documenting what we do in order to get consistency is for the marketing X factor, which drum roll is trust, keeping your promises. Is there anything more important than keeping our promises to us?
So true. Trust is important. You nailed it on the head.
Yeah. And so thinking about the tips I got, is there any others that you can think of?
Yeah, so I think all the tips that you're giving are just excellent too, especially the one on hiring a consultant, right? Because, documentation can be new and almost like second nature for a lot of people out there, right? Because when we start a business, we're usually in it because we're good at that craft of what we're doing, right? So if you're starting a pie business, you're good at building pies. If you start a sales coaching business, you're great at sales. But documentation is not something that we're always good at. And usually the best way to do that is to hire someone like yourself or anyone anyone else who's going to be good at the documentation part. So in the spirit of delegation and what we try and do with Trainual, we even suggest, hey, delegate and go get a consultant to help you out. And obviously Jeannie and her team are amazing. And so totally recommend them as well. But one thing I would add on there, because a lot of times, and I know you mentioned it before, can get overwhelming to like think about documentation, right? Because when we're running a business, we think about all the processes that we have, right? We have a sales process, we have a payroll process, we have a hiring process, we have, a customer service process. Like, it's like, oh, like, where do I start? Like, what do I do with this? And my suggestion, and same with Chris's suggestion all the time, is start at the process that's giving you the most pain point right now, that if you could have help in, would totally like be this relief on you, relief on your business, and maybe even open up the funnel to bring in more revenue. So what does that mean? So if you know, like, for example, that, your sales team is just totally slammed, and you know that people are stressed out, and maybe you're stressed out, maybe you're hopping on the sales calls, and you know that if you could have 2 to 3 more sales like employees on your team taking more calls and closing more deals, then that would be a game changer in your business over everything else. Start by documenting your sales process and what you're doing. And I totally love that, what you mentioned, document what you are doing in the sense. So if it's you doing those sales calls, you should be the one documenting it. But if it's maybe someone on your sales team that is doing it, engage your sales team to document that process, because they're actually in the weeds and doing it. But regardless, starting at the one process that is the biggest bottleneck, the biggest pain point, or the biggest activation for your business, whether it's saving costs or bringing in more money, that's the place to start. And then once you have that documented, start documenting on the next big pain point and the next one and the next one. And I love that tip that you said, like, think of it as like a year-long process, something that's longer, because it's not going to happen overnight. That's totally understandable. And we get that. But, we heard a customer say, and I don't remember the exact wording, so the phrasing, it might be off, but it was something like, if you're spending like 20 hours today on Trainual, you're saving hundreds of hours in the future. Right? Because that time documenting is going to allow you to be able to replicate that process by hiring on more people, and by also giving them information that they can access quicker, so that you're not having a big bottleneck in your business and you're keeping that sustainable growth from going. So those are my 2 tips: is start at the pain point, and number 2, tell yourself that this is an investment in your time that you're taking to save more time and make more money in the long run.
Definitely learned something from that myself, and it reminds me of a really lovely client I've got that's been having trouble getting his team to do their timesheets. And I have a really cheeky thing I do with that. I say, whoever is the worst at it and the biggest culprit, put them in charge of documenting the process. If you really want to learn something, teach it.
I love that.
When it's like, oh, I just can't remember to do it, I bet I can help you. You're now in charge of rolling out the entire process. And obviously you need to look over it and check it. That actually can be a nice challenge for a team member, a good way to see them step up. And something I'll remind my business owners is that 2 big keys to success are stepping up as a leader and a manager. And, a leader shares the vision. But as a manager, when you put that manager hat on, you must be prepared to plan, organize, staff, direct, and control. 5 things I find icky. And all I want to do is have fun with everyone and put my friend hat on, but we have to take friend hat off and put manager hat on. And if you're not really great at that and you want to stick with the leader hat on, hire a manager.
There you go.
When Karen was on the show, and I'm so excited to have these 2 great resources for business owners, she shared a powerful story of taking a business from 5 to 6 to 7 figures and beyond just through systemizing. Have you got any stories that you can share with us about how somebody has, leveraged Trainual and systems for success?
Yeah, 100%. So I'll never forget like this moment when I went to a conference to go speak on behalf of Trainual, and it was a room of entrepreneurs. It was an amazing conference full of tons of people in there who were in that place that I mentioned before. Right, they're starting a business, it's doing well, but they're stressed out of their minds and they don't know what to do for next steps. And so the cool thing was we did this like live documentation thing where we said, because we had someone raise their hands and we were like, hey, like, what's the biggest issue that you're facing with Trainual right now, or biggest issue you're facing with documentation in general? Right, that was the way the question was formed. They were all in Trainual, so that's just generally where they were doing it. But we asked them, what's the biggest thing that's holding you back from documentation? And one woman raised her hand and she was like, you know what, I'm just so overwhelmed. There's so much to do. I don't know how to start. I don't know the best way to do this, everything like that. And it was so cool. So we were like, okay, totally understand this. Tell us a little bit more about your business. And she was saying that she was a catering business that was doing doing pretty well. They had a lot of clients, but she was super stressed out and didn't even have like the time to start to document these things, right? Because she was like, I'm spending 20 hours a day just working on X, Y, and Z, and I don't have the even time to breathe or like anything like that. So how do I have the time to document this? And at first, we said, totally understand this. We know that, you have this time crunch, and that's like where it is right now. In the end of the day, we had to reframe it simply to what we were mentioning before when we were talking about the time that you're going to spend right now is going to allow you to save that time in the future. So even though you might take, 4 hours today or this week to document these processes, that's going to save you hundreds and hundreds of hours down long. So you don't have to be working these 20-hour days. So we explained that concept of time, investment, so to say. And once that resonated with her, we said, okay, let's start with the biggest pain point in your business. What is that biggest pain point? And she's like, I'm just spending so much time just sourcing the food for my business. It's just a total drag. It's really just taking so much time off my thing. I know that I'm better at managing my people, but I don't have the time to attend to my people because I'm sourcing all these ingredients. So we said, great, let's focus on that. What are the steps that you take to source the ingredients? She says, well, I got to look for a food distributor. Great. Let's put that down. Look for a food distributor. Went through all the steps on that. What's the next thing? Well, I need to prepare the ingredients list. Great. Like let's put that in the thing. And we documented this process along the way. And we kept going step by step by step. And then as we had this SOP just beautifully crafted on how to source material, you can see her eyes light up. And as she looked at this piece of documentation, just a simple document, right? She looked and she saw that and she goes, oh my gosh, this is the key to freedom. And it's crazy, right? Because like all it is was just a simple documentation, but hearing her say that really showed the importance of process documentation. When you document what you do, you're able to basically, get yourself free of the things that are holding you down in your business, because that piece of documentation is your key to scaling. It's your key to delegation. It's your key to growing up. And I got in touch with this person a few weeks ago, and she told me that she hired more people on her team to go out and source the food. She's working less hours in the day, and her business has actually grown, I think 50% since we've like really gone inside of like really helping her out. So it's super cool to see that, like someone who was super stressed, working late hours in this kind of stagnant part of her business, ultimately take it to the next level by going in and basically implementing Trainual in her business, documenting her processes, delegating it out to a place where she's now seeing this sustainable growth that's helping her out down the long run. So, and it's super cool too, because we see this not just in her, but we see this in Chris, right? With this video production company. We see this even with me. Before I came to Trainual, I was running a personal development business. And until I understood how to properly document and delegate, we weren't growing. And then we grew 3 times in less than a year, which was amazing. And then, here at Trainual too, we see over 7,000 customers at this point who are growing and documenting and delegating their processes, which has just been an amazing journey to see. So that's just like one story of many different businesses who are using the power of Trainual, but not just Trainual, the power of documenting and delegating what they do so they can scale their business.
Documenting and delegating, I wrote that down earlier and it's so powerful. And then putting that manager hat on.
Yeah, 100%.
Zero tolerance.
Yeah.
But there are places for flexibility and there are places for, all these different things, but systems aren't always one of them. Mm-hmm. I feel like when it comes to your secret sauce, if you want to get the cake to come out right or the sauce, to come out right, you really do need to hold team accountable to following the process. A 7-figure entrepreneur I know, he's so, incredibly smart, because smart can be different to intelligent. He's such an incredible human that it's sometimes hard to actually understand what he wants or his vision. So sometimes he just says to his team, humor me, follow my process. Here's the process. He's built his 7-figure businesses just on process and achieved record level low cost of sales due to efficiency from process. But humor me. If you do the process end to end, I promise you, I think you're going to actually see the magic in it. And that's a good one too. You don't always have to fully understand it, but if you believe in your leader, then you'll be prepared to give it a go and then see the magic in the process. So, as a leader and a manager, sometimes it's about just saying, look, it is my way. This is what a process is. It's my way. And you need to do it my way. If you want to go and do it your way, more power to you and I'll support you. But if you've come to work with me, we're going to do it my way. And I promise you, you're going to love it if you just lean in and follow it. I think that's really key.
Yeah, I absolutely love that so much. I think that is such a crucial point, is like demonstrating the why behind the process. And the why is it because it works, right? And it's like, I'm doing this thing because it works. And it's to your point, it's like, sure, it might sound like something that's like a little harsh, but in the end of the day, that's how it works. Like one of the things that just blew my mind, like first reading this, it was in a book a while ago, but they were talking about how like, most small businesses end up failing, but about 90% of franchises usually succeed. And why is that? The reason why they succeed is because they have everything documented, from, how to open up the store, how to clean the fryers, how to do everything like that. Everything is so documented, and they have such strict ways of following to that process that they're able to replicate that success. And therefore they don't fail because they follow that process and doing it right. And so like, and I'm not saying everyone's got to franchise their business, but you got to make a franchisable business in the sense that you need to have that documentation down on there. And in the end of the day, like saying, hey, this is the way to do it. This is how we do it as a company. Follow this out. It gets those consistent results, going back to that word before, down the line. So I remember reading that statistic and it just blew my mind. And taking that concept is amazing.
Me too. It's in the single digits for failure of franchises, whereas your average business is 80% failure. Mm-hmm. And, another thing that I learned years ago was one of Australia's most successful entrepreneurs. Every team member that started with him, and he had hundreds and hundreds of staff, he would show them a special riddle. And if you want to look it up, and it's the power of really developing this stuff, if you look at the habit poem, and Joe, you're going to go wild for it. It's great because you can read it out to someone or have them read it. And it's a who am I? And it kind of, it says I am your best friend and I'm your worst enemy, and all of these other things. And who am I? I am habit. So I'd really encourage everyone to look that up. And there is I've developed probably 25 years of habits around processes, to a point where if you said, are you process driven? I'd scratch my head and say, I don't know, because it's such a habit. And so, start the journey. And a couple of people have pointed out, I've got a beautiful 12-year-old son. And over the last few years, even when before he turned 10, so it's quite little, he has started to have processes in his life.
That is awesome. Starting them young.
Exactly. One day I said to him, now, are you going to go to the holiday program? And he said, oh, no. He's about 8. I'm far too busy. And he had an exercise book where he'd sketched out what was involved in his days, Now he has a series of alarms set in his phone to remind him when to do certain things. And the power of habit and the way that we pass it on is incredible. So even if it's not your zone of genius, just get started. I think that pain point, if you've got staff that are refusing to do their timesheets and they have a million excuses, start there and be relentless and say, do you know what? By the end of this month, we're going to have documented end-to-end our timesheets. We're all going to have done an assessment to say, I know how to do this, and we're all going to show that we can do it. And we are going to do it. And we're going to meet every Wednesday at 3 p.m. to see how we're going and stay on track. If you can get through that first hurdle, I think you'll be on your way.
Yeah, I love that. And I love like the language that you're using of like making it a habit, right? It's like making those certain set of processes a habit in your business, right? Whether it is, filling out the timesheets, or whether it is updating the CRM, or whether it is, cleaning off the machinery every night, like making those processes habitual is like usually what leads to that consistent result. Because in the end of the day, it's not, oh, another thing I have to do. It's, oh, I'm just doing what I do. And like, to your point, like, it's like, are you process driven? It's like, I really don't know, but you are doing it in the end of the day. And so by like having that documentation there and setting the standards, not just for how to do it, but when to do it and the reason to do it, and like the context behind to do it, is also equally as important as putting the how-tos, because again, that forms that habitual thing where you're able to stack, all the results over and over again, which is amazing. Like, brings me back to a quote, which is like, I would fear the man who practices one kick 1,000 times than the man who practices 1,000 kicks one time. And the same thing goes for your business, right? Because like, if you're practicing that same thing over and over and over and over and over again, it becomes so well. But if you're just kind of doing random things at random times, your business gets what? Random results. And we don't want that. So like having that consistency.
Yes, random results leads to rectification, refunds,
Yes.
complaints. Oh, I've just got stories and stories on it. So Joe, just to kind of finish up, and I think this has been so powerful, and combined with the one with Karen Carey, I'm really looking forward to helping business owners just listen and learn and take really powerful action. I know there is a book that the listeners can grab, so I think we'll put all of that in the show notes. But if you just want to tell them where they can find you, how they can get in touch, how they can maybe get a taste of Trainual.
Yeah, 100%. And thank you so much again for having me on here and for mentioning the book and everything. Listeners, if you're listening in right now, you can go to our website at trainual.com. And that's spelled Trainual. So think training and then manual smashed together all in one, trainual.com. And you can start a 7-day free trial on our website. We don't take your credit card information, so we're not going to auto bill you after that 7 days. It's totally risk-free. Go in there, try out the platform, see if you like it, and you can start like really just building your business playbook is what we essentially call it in the end of the day, right? All of your plays, your SOPs, your process all in one place, and you could have it on there too. And as Jeannie mentioned, our founder and CEO, Chris Ronzio, has a book out called The Business Playbook as well. That's great foundation for how to build a robust playbook to document and delegate what you do. So it's not just specifically on Trainual, but it's more on the principles around it as well, which is great. And then also too, if you're looking for a certified consultant to go and help you out, I recommend Jeannie and her team for sure. Definitely feel free to reach out to them. They're great Trainual partners with us. They know what they're talking about. They know what they're doing. And, I totally recommend them. So definitely feel free to check them out if you're looking for some extra help with your Trainual account.
Yes, absolutely. And we've got great ways you can get started with us free. So just reach out. We can do we've got great little business health checks, which include kind of where you're at with your systems and processes, which is really unique to if you've got teams. So we walk you through 3 health checks, now and future analysis, really get clear. And all of that is no cost before you even get started with this, just to have fun.
That is awesome. I love that. Thank you so much for having me, Jeannie. I really appreciate you and what you're doing for small businesses. I mean, I think it's such a gift that, you're not only having this platform on here where other business leaders are going, but you are in the business of helping people. And I know you're changing the lives of a lot of small business owners around the world. So keep doing what you're doing. And I'm just really grateful for everything you're doing for the small business community.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Thanks for tuning in. For more information on this episode or how to work with me, check out the show notes. If you'd like to know how I can help you do better in business, you know where to find me, betterinbusiness.global. See you in the next episode.